The book Huckleberry Finn is a sequel to The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. The book takes place in 1840 Missouri. It starts off with Huck being adopted by a widow named Miss Watson who tries to civilize him. Huck will occasionally sneak out to go hang with his friend Tom Sawyer. Huck's drunk and abusive father kidnaps Huck from the widow to go live with him in the woods. Huck is sort of happy to not go to school, but still is upset. Huck then escapes being locked in a room by Pop and fakes his death to escape on a canoe. Huck reaches an island where he finds a runaway slave named Jim, who had originally been owned by Miss Watson, but ran off after hearing he was going to be sold. Living on the island, a house and a raft washes up. They go inside the house where Jim finds a guy that kicked the can, but won't let Huck see. To gain news of what's been going on in the town after Huck's death and Jim's escape, Huck disguises himself as a girl and finds there's a $300 reward for Jim, who the townspeople think was the murderer of Huck. Huck then returns to the raft and they set out. On the raft, they come across a steamboat and go snooping around, only to find that it's full of robbers and murderers. They then get separated by some thick fog, but are magically reunited. It is then said that Jim should go to a town named Cario so he can buy a boat ticket and go upstream to get on with his new life. However, it is then revealed that they had passed the town in the fog and are unable to go back. They are then again met by another steamboat, which this time crashes into them and flings Huck and Jim off the raft. Huck swims to land and, unable to find Jim, goes to the first house he sees. The house he goes to is owned by a rich family named the Grangerfolds, who is in a rivalry with another family named the Shepherdsons. After being adopted, one of the Shepherdson boys sleeps with a Grangerfold girl, and practically reenacts Romeo and Juliet. And as expected, they go to war, where everyone dies in a fantastic shootout except for Huck because he's the main character. Huck is then again reunited with Jim, who had been living in the woods very close to the house and once again set off in the raft. While traveling down the Mississippi, they encounter two con artists who both claim royal descent, the Duke and the King. The two on the raft refuse to leave, so not being given any other options, Huck and Jim have to put up with them. The con artists plan to put on a Shakespeare play, pretending to be famous actors from London on tour in the next town. However, the play flops, so they decide to put on yet another play called The Royal Nonsuch. They intrigue the townspeople by saying women and children are not permitted, but in the end, it's just the king coming out on stage naked for a few minutes. They go from town to town pulling various schemes, but the biggest heist was impersonating a dead man's brother and trying to sell his property. But all of that came to a crash when the real brother showed up and chased them out of the town. Finally, they want one last jerk move before they go on, which just so happens to be selling Jim to a nearby farmer. And like straight out of the Goonies, a major coincidence happens that just so happens to be very beneficial to the story, and it turns out that the farmers were Tom Sawyer's uncle and aunt. Tom discovers this and wants to help just for the adventure aspect, even though he's still a die-hard racist. To then free Jim, Huck dresses up as Tom, and Tom dresses up as his little brother to ensure no suspicion. Huck talks to Jim and they plan a very simple escape, which is instantly shot down by Tom because he wants a super cool Michael Bay type escape because he read about them in some books. During the escape, Tom gets shot in the leg, and instead of ditching him, Jim and Huck bring him to a doctor who turns in Jim. Tom's Aunt Polly arrives and reveals the identity of Huck and Jim, thus letting them go because the widow had died during their adventure and had set Jim free in her will. Tom knew this all the time, but kept it secret. And because Jim had to get on the moment, Jim tells Huck that it was his dad that was dead in the house. This seems to faze Huck very little due to his terrible relationship with his dad. Huck then gets on the raft and goes west instead of being civilized by Tom's Aunt Polly. And that concludes the summary for Huckleberry Finn. Thank you for letting me waste your time.